All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are really going to get under the hood of generative AI. We're talking about the huge effort going on right now to make sure these incredibly powerful tools are actually safe and, reliable.
So that's a massive question, right? And the answer? Well, it's not some simple single silver bullet. What's actually happening is that experts are building this kind of multi-layered defense. Think of it as a bunch of different strategies all working together to keep AI in check.
Okay, so the first layer of that defense, it's basically about writing a clear rule book. You've got governments and big institutions stepping in to create these frameworks for managing risk. They're setting the ground rules, the standards for how AI should be built and used responsibly. And then there's the second layer, which honestly is all about stress testing. Researchers are basically creating this digital gauntlet. They are pushing these models to their absolute limits to find out, okay, where does it bend? And maybe even more importantly, where does it completely break?
And really, both of these things, the rules and the tests, they all come down to one single crucial idea: transparency. It's about knowing what a model can do, what it can't do, and where the real dangers are. So, with that in mind, let's dive right in. So, before you can even think about managing AI, you first have to get a handle on the unique risks it brings to the table. And let's be clear, this is not like your typical software. The challenges are a whole different ballgame.
So, one of the biggest systemic risks out there is something the National Institute of Standards and Technology, you'll hear them called NIST, calls algorithmic monocultures. Just think about it for a second. Imagine a world where pretty much everyone is relying on just a few super powerful AI models. Now, what happens if one of those core models has a major flaw? That failure doesn't just hit one system. Oh no, it could set off a domino effect, a whole cascade of problems rippling across society.
Then, of course, you have the more direct risks, like the model just generating harmful content. And this starts with the really obvious stuff, producing things that are just clearly obscene. But it goes deeper than that. It also extends to more subtle, insidious harms. I'm talking about content that degrades or marginalizes certain people or whole communities.
And of course, straight-up abusive material that's designed to harass or intimidate someone. The NIST framework is super clear on this. All of these things are real, tangible harms that absolutely have to be managed and shut down. And the list goes on. Beyond that, you've got risks like the AI just making stuff up. They sometimes call it confabulation, or reinforcing existing biases in society, and even spitting out instructions for dangerous things. So you look at all this, and the big, crucial question is, how on earth do you build guardrails for something so powerful and complex? Well, let's flip over to the solution side of things and see how people are tackling this. We'll start with a really structured approach to management that's been put forward. At the core of this is the NIST AI Risk Management Framework. And really, it's a pretty simple but powerful four-step loop. Step 1 is govern. That's all about building a culture that actually takes risk seriously. Then you map. You figure out all the specific ways AI could go wrong for you. After that, you measure. You analyze and keep track of those risks. And finally, you manage. You actually step in and do something about them. Now, this is what I find really cool. The framework doesn't just stay high level. It translates those big ideas into actual concrete actions for different people. So for you, the end user, it might be as simple as deploying fact-checking tools. For the developers building this stuff, it's about getting feedback from communities that could be hurt by bias. See? It takes these abstract concepts and makes them real and tangible. Okay, but a framework is just the starting line. You also have to get in there and aggressively stress test the models themselves. You have to find out what they are really capable of, good and bad. So to really get a grip on what these new models can do, you need totally new kinds of tests. And the researchers at Google, they came up with this absolutely brilliant test to probe the limits of long-term memory in their Gemini 1.5 model. The challenge they set up was just immense. First, they took a massive video file, we're talking over 10 hours long, to act as this giant digital haystack. And then, buried somewhere inside that haystack, they hid one tiny, specific piece of information on a single frame of video. It is literally the ultimate needle in a haystack test. And the results, honestly, they're stunning. What you're looking at here is a grid showing the test results. Every one of those squares is a trial, and green means the model found the needle. I mean, just look at that. Gemini went 5, nailed it almost every single time. It's incredible proof of its grasp on really, really long-form context. And this is why these kinds of extreme tests are so important. They create brand new benchmarks. They let us objectively compare how different models stack up on these super complex tasks. Like here, you can see a direct comparison of models being scored on how well they can answer questions about videos that are an hour long. Okay, so you've got all this sophisticated testing and these management frameworks working behind the scenes. So what's the final piece of the puzzle? Well, it's all about communicating the results clearly and openly. And the way this is done is through something called a model card. The idea is actually pretty simple, but it's so powerful. It's basically like a nutrition label for an AI. It's a standard document that tells you exactly what a model is, how well it performs, and crucially, where its weaknesses are. And you know what? This isn't just some abstract academic idea. Tech companies are actually doing this. They're putting it into practice. You can find model cards being published right alongside the AI models in their developer docs. It's bridging that huge critical gap between a research paper and a tool that people can actually use. But, and this is a big but, this is all an evolving science. As these models get exponentially more powerful, our methods for testing and evaluating them have to keep up. The researchers who built Gemini even point this out themselves. They say that as these models can handle more and more information, the sheer cost and effort of just creating good tests becomes a massive challenge all on its own.
And that really leaves us with a final, pretty big thought. Making sure AI is safe, it's not a one-and-done kind of fix. It's this continuous, ongoing process of innovation, of scrutiny, and of adaptation. The race really isn't just about building more powerful AI. It's about building smarter ways to understand and, ultimately, to control it.